I wanted to make a point. I think we need to make it clear that it's no one's right to take property, land, or life because of what their religion tells them. And that's where most of the Israeli argument comes from the religion. So I believe it's essential for our side, or the Palestinian side of this argument, to make sure that the Palestinian cause is not framed as a religious cause. It's not, Judaism versus Islam. It's not the land of the Muslims. It's fighting for the rights of the people who were kicked out from their homes to return and live a dignified life. Yeah. So I think framing it as a religious argument not only weakens our side, but it also gives credence to the Zionist belief. So it just becomes, it's my religion versus your religion. And the Palestinian cause is not that, it's much bigger than that.
So, and just to add on to that, America, when I talk to people that are kind of naive and oblivious, some people will be like, oh, like, isn't it like a religious thing that goes back 1,000 years? I'm like, no, it's not. What do you mean? But yeah, just people are taught that, and people are like, oh, this is so complicated, I don't want to talk about it. And that, serves the Israelis, because then it's easy for them to be painted as the victims in this situation, which I think they're not. I think that it's important, and this is a term that I use, it's called inclusive victimhood. I think that victimhood isn't necessarily a zero-sum game. So you can be considered the victim all while, having another victim on the other side. And I think that can bring us together, because the Jews have suffered so much throughout their history, and so have the Palestinians. And I think that, by uniting on this suffering, and instead of letting it separate us, which is what the Oslo Accords have done, because I don't believe in segregation as a means of moving forward. I don't think that we should take 22% of our homeland. And that's what, the two-state solution is. We get 22%. Why would, and so that's my issue, is that أنا من صفد, right? When Safad is in the north, and it wouldn't be a part of the Palestinian state. So why would I want free movement for all Palestinians and all Israelis. I want to be able to live in Safad. I want to be able to live in Tel Aviv. I think that Israelis should be able to live in Haifa, or not in Haifa, in Nablus. But I do think that we need to rectify the wrongdoings of the past by acknowledging them, just like in South Africa, how they acknowledge apartheid, how they, make it clear that this was something that was wrong and we need to change it. This is something that I think that's very important for us, as Israelis, is to confront the past. Because right now, for example, a lot of historical knowledge is stored in Israeli archives. They hide information about the Nakba, because when you start putting out that information, it becomes very clear what this is. You know what I mean? It's very hard to paint yourselves as, oh, but, for example, there's the narrative of like, oh, but the six armies attacked us, and we were this strong, like this little weak thing, and like this little weak army. And when you look at, the disparity, for example, just in the numbers, the Israelis outnumbered the Arab armies massively. And then you never talk about how the fact that Palestinians didn't even, in 48, the Palestinian representation was against Jordanian invasion of the West Bank. We were never afforded the right to self-determination. And that's why I don't see self-determination of the Jews necessarily as something that, or it has infringed upon our self-determination, but I think in the future it can work together. And I do have faith. I really do.
I think, as you said, they can frame these 6-day war events and the 1948 events in a way that makes them look as the victims. I think the Israelis in general are very good at framing the arguments to benefit them, and they study this for a long time, which I think is something that lacks on the Palestinian and the Arab side, because you don't see, like, if you put 99% of Arabs in a debate or an argument against the Zionist or Israeli, from an American or a European point of view, the Zionist is winning that debate almost every time. So I think even back then it was a problem, like you said, in the 1967 war, where the Palestinians didn't exactly support the war. I think it was still a problem of education, because even I think Jamal Abdel Nasser was in control of all the 6 countries' armies, and like it was a thing of education in the Arab world. It was widespread. Yeah, we have to go. We have to take Palestine back. The lack of education on this issue is a problem that the Arab side faced back then until today.
Yeah, Ukaman, just to add on to that point, I think, and I said this before, one of the main reasons is because we don't have, a historical narrative. إحنا كفلسطينية. All of our archives have been stolen. In 48, they stole everything. And now it's in the Israeli National Archive library, I think. إحنا, the Israelis have a very set history that they believe in, that they've been taught. And it's been challenged by, مثلا, the new Israeli historians such as Ilan Pape, Avi Schleim, Benny Morris. They challenge this notion that Israel was this small army that was just defending itself. They've challenged this, and they've written books. مثلا, I recommend people watching this to read Ilan Pape's book called The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. This is one of the most intellectual Israeli historians, and he's called anti-Semitic. Like they call him because he's anti-Zionist, because he recognizes the wrongdoings of the Zionist movement, and people slander him and call him, a self-hating Jew. Because he's able to stand up to the crowd and say, no, listen, I'm willing to accept the wrongdoings of my country, basically. Just like I think it's also maybe important for us to, but the thing is, we don't have that historical narrative. إحنا كتير صعب إنه نتعلم عن تاريخنا. ما عندنا تاريخ. It's not, we don't have anything that's written for us. You know what I mean? We don't have a national archive, كفلسطينية. Very, very difficult for us to educate ourselves, which is, I think, super important. And so, this is something that I want to, promote and start doing, is Palestinian, the birth of the Palestinian national identity. People don't really know, like, when did Palestinians start becoming a thing? Or, when was our national identity born? How were we under the Ottomans? How was Jerusalem like pre-Jewish immigration? We're not taught about that. So I think that's very important. Yeah, 100%.